Hi, I'm here with Bobby Cesaksky. You just published an interesting article. You're the COO of Certinia. And more importantly, you came up with a very interesting concept and theory. And it really underpins really why every project and every project-based approach has been misunderstood. So let's start with the context here. It's an HB article that just recently came out talking about the notion of project management, project delivery being two different things. I mean, who would have thought that we hadn't figured this out by now? But it's so obvious, but it's not obvious. Explain why and why this has changed in the age of AI.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Ray, and thanks for having me. Excited for the conversation here. The piece I wrote about, I think, is a specific example of what I believe to be a broader topic around, business leaders, frankly, being more nuanced in their application of AI technologies within their companies. But within that specific example, a lot of what I've been seeing, and I know, our leadership team at Certinia has been seeing from our professional services customers is that they're very, very focused, understandably so, on deploying AI solutions in support of client-facing services work, right? We call that services delivery. These are broad, probabilistic AI solutions supporting, research, content synthesis, content creation, unstructured data management, right, and all of those types of use cases. But there's a whole other side, right, to services organizations, which focuses on managing, right, the business of services, what we call services management. And this is, services estimation, quoting, resource management, project financial management, forecasting, billing and revenue management. It really is this kind of dichotomy of these two sides of the same business services organization here, professional services organization, the services delivery and the services management. And the point of the article really, Ray, I think is threefold. First is that services businesses just need to recognize the difference, right, between solutions for services delivery and then the solutions for services management. And then second, AI solutions, right, that can be applied towards services management aren't the same, right, as that can be used for services delivery, right? There's greater allowance for probabilistic, right, solutions, probabilistic outcomes in and around services delivery, whereas services management might require a much more deterministic and auditable solution there as well. And then, third, to whatever extent, and I think we're seeing this rapidly right now, to whatever extent that there's been historically a bright line between and separating services delivery and services management, that line's quickly being erased. Services delivery is increasingly informing services management, and services management likewise is going to inform services delivery. And as services business leaders or professional services leaders, you really need to be thinking about kind of both of those and solving for both of those from an AI standpoint, not just one or the other. And that's really the point of the article there, Ray.
This is really important when we think about the flows and the decision trees that are involved here. There are a set of deterministic decision trees and a set that are probabilistic.
Yeah.
Talk about that logic between the deterministic logic versus the probabilistic logic, because it's kind of important to understand that before you even jump into AI. I mean, you got to get that right first, and then we can think about AI.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Look, you really think about the advent of these large language models over the last 3 years here and the power of probabilistic, AI and deploying that within enterprises. It really is fantastic. I think everybody down to a person, both from a consumer standpoint as from an enterprise standpoint, appreciates, what these things are able to do. That being said, just having probabilistic AI deployed, right, and engaging with your employees, with your customers, is one thing, and is also appropriate for certain use cases and super helpful in many use cases, right? But in a lot of use cases, and then again, this is kind of getting back into what I was mentioning previously a little bit around kind of the nuance around use cases and AI use cases, is there are a set of use cases though that do require rules, right? That do require massive amounts of enterprise context, right? That do require auditability, right? And it really is this deterministic harness, right, that needs to be utilized alongside the probabilistic AI capabilities. And when we start thinking about, right, those use cases around services management, right, again, thinking about, hey, I want to, staff this project or restaff this project, or I need to invoice my customers. I need to recognize revenue, right? And I want to utilize AI for those things, right? Those are sets of actions, right, that businesses are turning to us for and saying, hey, I need AI to be able to do these things for me. I need it to take action for me, right? But you need to trust it. And that's where that determinism comes in, right?
Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you're doing
Yeah.
ASC 606. You don't want that probabilistic, do you?
That's exactly right. And not just that, right, but auditable too, right? Like if it takes an action, right, and I need to know exactly what the action was that it took. And so I think that's, again, our approach. And when we start thinking about the value of Certinia and what it is that we sometimes bring to the table here, we're not bringing that probabilistic, right, AI models, all right, those things exist, but we are harnessing that, right, and supporting and working with that on behalf of our customers within that kind of rules bound and auditable framework.
So this is why you keep saying PSOs, professional service organizations, keep solving the wrong AI problem, is because you have to break them into deterministic versus probabilistic, services management versus services delivery. I mean, by doing that, then you can actually get AI correctly done, and of course finding the right system. But you also talk about where these points converge. Let's go a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, no, happy to. So I think it's really interesting when you start thinking about, again, the two sides of that services business and the services organization here, the delivery and the management. And I think what you're going to start seeing, what we have started seeing and hearing from our customers as well, right, is explain to me why, as a services leader, right, I might not be able to do business development, right, and have a conversation, Ray, say with you, right, and you're a prospective client of ours, and we're happy to entertain kind of and understand what it is that you're looking, from us from an outcome standpoint, and we're having a conversation, and this is all being recorded and it's unstructured data, right, and how are we able now, right, to convert that into a services SOW and a services estimate, right? How are we able to then automatically generate a services opportunity, right, and a project, right, that can then automatically be staffed, right? And then if it's going to automatically be staffed, and we're staffing that with both human and agentic and digital workers here as well. And I need to be able to identify what our digital workers can do versus our human workers from a skills and capability standpoint. And all of these things, and that's all based on that services delivery side. And you start seeing, right, this convergence, right, of the work that's being done on behalf of clients, right, by, again, human and digital workers, right, really informing, again, some of the back office administrative workflows, and frankly, vice versa, right? And
we're the last generation of managers to only manage humans. So it's a very different approach. I mean, I think you're pulling that out here. And this really means it's really important to think about the ROI behind this as well. In terms of how this comes back to. Like, it's not just, you don't want vanity metrics. It has to tie back to something. Yeah. And so one of the most interesting things from reading your article is the insight that comes out from learning that if you're collapsing decision trees, then you need to know exactly who's responsible for the outcome, and when and where you insert a human becomes just as important as the automation, but actually might even be more important. Where you insert the human is actually the art of actually making this successful.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, right? And we talk, to so many of our customers about this progression and acceleration towards outcomes-based pricing, work, and how services firms are going to start to differentiate and compete with each other, right, on those capabilities around those outcomes. And I think being able to have, right, clear and auditable measurement, right, of what those outcomes are around any services engagement, right, going forward here is going to be critical for any services firm, right? Being able to sit there and articulate, look, this is what we've delivered, right? This is how we've delivered it, right? And again, this is the outcome that we've been driving for you is going to be essential.
So let's make it even more real. Bobby, I'm the director of operations. What does my life look like on Monday morning with Veda running in the background?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Veda is really doing, again, is really automating the glue of your services business, right? As you start to think and you're a project manager, right, reporting perhaps, Ray, into you as the director of operations, right, thinking about all of the status reports, right, thinking about the resource updates, thinking about, what are those documents and what are those forms and communications, right, that you're delivering, both to your client, right, as well as to your team and perhaps to your managers within the services organization as well, right? That's eating, easily a third of a project manager's week, right, from a time standpoint right now. With Veda, right, we're able to automate, right, and agentify a lot of those workflows that are really kind of gobbling up, right, a lot of that administrative work on behalf that project managers and service delivery leads need to perform on a regular basis. And being able to just reclaim that allows you to go do more billable work, right? Makes you more available again to kind of do more strategic and thoughtful activities, right, on behalf of your services firm, and frankly deliver those outcomes, right, to your clients in a faster manner as well.
I like those specialist AI agents, and I think what's important here is, we typically have the scenario where you send someone out for 2 weeks, come back to figure out what's going on. You send someone out for a day, you get the information coming back. You're going to realize very quickly that time compression is here. The human is in the critical path of almost every single decision. And so you're going to actually, it's going to give you more at bats, but at the same time, you're going to have to make sure that you put more experience in place, because expertise is now a commodity, but experience is not. So you're going to see something different.
I love that line. I love that. I'm going to have to steal that from you, Ray.
Definitely take it. So let's talk about what happens, because if I get my services management and my services delivery together, but if I did them separately, I'd be in trouble. I would never get to the autonomous enterprise. Tell me why that's the case.
Yeah, again, you really do need to think about that end-to-end workflow and really staying focused on your clients right here as well. And as I was mentioning, that bright line between kind of services and services management and services delivery really is being erased. And what services organizations are going to need to think about, as you kind of mentioned, right? We're going to compete in a different way now, right? We're going to compete on outcomes. We're going to compete on speed. We're going to compete on time to value here. And with if those are going to be the areas for competition, right? Going all the way and making sure that you're in lockstep in terms of how you're managing the business and how you're delivering it, right, with speed and accuracy and client outcomes in mind is going to be critical, right, for services organizations to be able to compete in the future here. They need to be connected.
Well, if you haven't read this, check out HBR, Why Professional Service Organizations Keep Solving the Wrong AI Problem. Definitely a thought leadership piece not to forget. I think it came out May 5th.
Yeah, a few days ago. Yeah.
May 5th. Yeah, this came out May 5th. So definitely something to check out. Definitely read that. Bobby, it's a pleasure talking to you. I think this is going to unlock a lot of value for organizations who are trying to figure out why they're not getting their AI efforts to be successful. It's because they're not seeing the big picture, and they've got to figure out how to pull all this together. And the semantic, the context layer, that's going to be even more important as we bring deterministic and probabilistic capabilities together in AI. So thanks for being here, Bobby.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it, Ray.